Hey guys, welcome back. Story of Scale podcast. We're here once again, interrupting your regularly scheduled programming with, it's not really breaking news, but it feels like a very exciting time. The last 9 days have been crazy. So if you guys missed the last episode that is a part of this series, you are in part 2 of a 4-part series on AI architecture and agentic AI. We'll be talking about a behind the scenes look into how Chad and I and others on the team are leveraging AI. And it has been exciting, exhausting, exhilarating, all the things. And I think the motivation for this isn't just to help you win with AI faster, is to protect you from some of the mistakes, because we've made a lot of mistakes. We've learned a lot, and we want you to be able to learn from that experience. And frankly, I think we're just a bit annoyed with what I'm seeing pop up in my algorithm. Chad, I don't know if you've been seeing it much about that, but it is all in my feed at the moment. And some of it is making me grit my teeth a bit.
Yeah.
Go comment, be like, do not listen to this person. You're being swindled.
Yeah.
And there's also like the AI rage thing. And I tried to acknowledge the tension that I feel about that in relation to AI. And we want to honor that tension throughout this series, because there's a lot of hate out there right now. And some of it is legitimate and justified. And some of it is the result of manipulation in the marketplace and politics, which is obviously very polarizing. So
Totally.
if you missed it, go back and listen to that first episode, but I'm excited to jump into this one.
Yeah, me too. And I know for me, you mentioned this, like, yeah, it's all over. And why we wanted to do this is I think we've got a fresh perspective on it. And I think that we're really sharing how hard it is. And as we're going to jump into here, the importance of specialization, and not just building this massive super agent and you just did this one time and now you're just going to try to teach 3,000 people how to do it. But we've learned a lot, and we're using it in a team context, and I remember when the idea was, hey, we're just going to create 3. You touched on this, like, we're going to name it with starting with these because it's and then I think 1 week later, I don't even remember the number, but it was 9 or 10. But I who am a high achiever and feel like I can remember a lot of things, all of a sudden I'm like, I got to now remember 10 team members. What do they do? And part of this was training our team even how to use them, right? It was like, and not everyone on our team is at the same place with AI. And and we're not trying to replace people. This isn't like, hey, how do we cut payroll? It's how do we actually create tools and additional people to do the things we want to do as a company. And I remember you just saying, hey, let's do it openly. Like, let's not, and like some of us are going to feel dumb doing this, but it's going to train the agents, different things like that. Plus it's going to help all of us see how we're doing it become better. And I think that's going to be a challenge. It's all of a sudden, where we're going to talk on this episode, like, we just added 27 team members to our team. Granted, I interact maybe with 5 or 6. Some other people may interact with 4 or 5 different ones. So it's not like we're all interacting with 27. But I think that's an important thing that we're going to talk about. And I think, it's really fun. You've got some, screenshots to share, of how this actually plays out in our business, and what does that actually look like, and which agents do what, and how the agents work together. So I'd love for you just to, even just with that kind of tease, walk through, a little bit more in depth of, hey, which agents are we using primarily, and how does that actually look like in a team context?
Yeah, for sure. It's going to feel a little bit vulnerable, because a lot of these screenshots that we pulled for this episode are from the early days. And I even pulled one that references what you were just talking about, which is not all humans have responded the same. And we created a humans only channel with no AI allowed. And you're going to see a screenshot from the reaction to that. And I think, like, just one more thing before we jump straight to those screenshots is, I was harping on the idea of, like, the gurus in our feeds, and I'm seeing, like, primarily 2 different people out there. And one of them is the person who has never built a successful business, and they see AI as like this opportunity to make a ton of money. And meanwhile, they're being affirmed by other gurus and billionaires who are like, what would you have to say to all the young people? Like, what would you do if you want to become? I would go found a AI consultant company and help small businesses install AI. I'm like, that sounds great. But what that person is then doing is going, okay, I need to go learn how to use AI. Okay, now I understand how to use AI. I need to help business owners install this in their business. But they have never built a business.
Yeah, they don't understand
And so
business.
it's one thing to understand the technology, but the mistakes that a lot of business owners are feeling the pain of right now is a technical expert came in who understood technology but didn't know how to contextualize that technology to help a business owner get value. And there's that common saying that those who can't do teach, or sometimes people skip over the can't do and try to teach because they think there's money in it. And
Mhm.
frankly, I think we just got pissed off enough that's like, you were nudging me. We got to talk more about AI. You got to show people what we're doing. I'm like, nah, nah, nah. I'm like, why? It's like, because no one else is doing it the way that we're doing it, and no one's talking about it. It's such a small amount of people. So,
Mhm.
please, guys, don't make assumptions. If you just saw the title of this or you heard the intro and you're like right there on the edge of like clicking the whatever the next competing YouTube video is on the side of your browser window, if you're watching online, like stick with us because this is not quote unquote just another AI chat.
Mhm.
These
Yep.
are two real business owners with real small businesses helping real humans figure this out, getting real value out of it. So
Mhm.
it's not hype and it's not hyperbole.
Yep.
It's real. And with that, let me validate that by showing you some stuff. Does that sound good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm afraid I haven't seen these yet, so I could have said something really, this talk about vulnerable. Like, what did I say?
Oh man. I want to start with this example of a dinner reservation. And when you just think about how do you get super practical, I spoke at an event for EO, GLC, their Global Leadership Conference. I was doing the keynote for that event. And Kate and I were the first two people to arrive in Dublin because we were the ones speaking and leading a workshop at the event. On the heels of that, we hosted one of our client intensives. We get together with our clients once per quarter in person. And I was like, hey guys, we're going to be in Dublin. That's a cool city. We move it around every quarter. Y'all just want to come to Dublin? They said yes. So now the rest of our team, or more of our team, is flying in. And so in this particular example, Shane is on Slack. He's walking. Imagine he's getting off the plane and he's going, what are we going to do for dinner? And are we meeting you guys at the hotel? And so Shane jumps in, says, y'all got plans tonight? We're thinking early dinner, then bed by 9. Want to meet up for dinner? And then tags those of us who are in Dublin, right? I'm like, of course. Holly's like, yes. And he goes, any recommendations on where to go? And look at the number of replies that are under that. It's only 23, or whoa is 23, depending on if that's a lot for you or not. But here's what happened in that thread. Immediately started a thread and said, hey, Vera, who is a research based agent. She runs off of Perplexity's model, not another model. Again, that goes back to the specialization thing. I wanted someone who was able to go do real time research using the strengths of Perplexity. But then her back end communication model that she uses with us is GPT-5.5. So she's running two models, but she's using Perplexity for research. So because she is our research assistant, I'm like, hey, Vera, please research restaurant options here in Dublin, Ireland. Make 5 suggestions. I went and pulled the hotel that we were staying at from my calendar, gave her the address. I wanted to be within walking distance. So what happened? Almost instantly, notice my message was at 9:13. She completed her research at 9:14. Now, I love the
Jeez.
humans on my team. I've never had a human find me 5 options that quickly. So then what happens? I'm like, thanks, all set from you. Hey, Vesper, who's kind of like my personal assistant. I also have a human executive assistant, but we also have a family assistant. And so we kind of have like an assistant, like a team of assistants. And one of them is an agent named Vesper. So I'm like, hey, Vesper, can you check to see if any reservations can be made at any of these restaurants online for 5 people, anytime between 5 to 7 Dublin time? Vera says, hey, you're welcome, gives a little tip to Vesper, and then Vesper goes to work. So based on her research, she found one of the 5 that had availability. Before confirming, go make that reservation, I confirmed with the humans, hey, does this sound good? Also, Ben, I know you guys aren't here yet. I don't know what time you land. You guys want to join us for dinner as well. So, hey, Vesper, while we're waiting to hear back, please go ahead and make a reservation for 7 people at that restaurant for 6 p.m. Once you make the reservation, please do the following. Remember, this is early days. I now would not even have to tell Vesper to do this. She would
Yep.
proactively say, I put it on your calendar for you and sent the invites out. And if she didn't know what to do or who to invite, she simply would have clarified it with me proactively and taken care of it. So these are also the early days where she was telling us a lot about what she was doing. She doesn't do a lot of that processing out loud anymore. Long story short, she ends up emailing the restaurant. They replied back to her. They confirmed the reservation. She sent the, she put it on the calendar, sent the calendar invites out. None of us confirmed it or double checked her work. But 6 hours later, 8 hours later, we walked into a restaurant, say, hey, we're here. They said, do you have a reservation? Said, yes, Hera for 7. And they said, right this way. Totally
Yeah.
seamless.
And
Yeah.
that was like when we had, I mean, literally 3 or 4 agents, right?
Yeah.
You know, so it
Yeah.
was that was really one of the first things when the team was in Dublin. They were just like, oh my gosh, this is pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I think there's a few different types of people listening in. There's the person who's like, really, that's all you're doing with agents? I can make a dinner reservation. And it feels like such an elementary example. And you run the risk of not realizing or appreciating like how extraordinary that is. That
Mhm.
I, while walking around a European city with nothing but my phone in my pocket, didn't have to sit and be distracted from conversations with my wife. And she going, what are you doing on your phone? And I'm like, I'm trying to find us a restaurant for tonight. And I also didn't have to delegate it to someone who was on an airplane, even
Mhm.
though it would have been a Holly task. I could immediately, with no delays, get the job done. And the fact that they could do all that and interact with other humans on my behalf, that truly was extraordinary. And that was one of those first aha moments of, oh my goodness, this changes everything. Right.
Yeah,
And then
because
the other,
you probably would have gone to every website to check to check the
correct,
if it was available. You know, while it seems small, it probably was 30 to 45 minutes of your time easily.
correct. Yeah.
And how often do you get to Ireland with your wife? So
Yep.
it's 30 or 45 minutes, or those 30, 45 minutes are probably worth way more than the average 30 to 45 minutes, right?
Yes. Yep.
Really powerful.
Another type of person that's listening in right now is really, guys, that's all you're using it for. And you already know Agentic AI. And trust me, again, that was one of the first examples. That's the part of our origin story of our AI epiphany. And
Mhm.
so, yes, we know that is barely scratching the surface. I don't even know if it's scratching the surface. That's
Well,
how big
actually,
the
if people don't even know, it's actually dinner reservations are really hard with AI right
yeah,
now because
yeah.
OpenTable and Resi's APIs are kind of challenging. So
Mhm.
the fact that these restaurants have their own, part of that's in Europe, like it's easier when you can go to their website and check versus actually using Resi or OpenTable's API. So dinner reservations are actually one of the harder things to do with AI right now.
Just to make sure everyone understands how mind blowing this is, the new version of this is if Vesper were to hit a roadblock and she needed to call the restaurant, I have built an entire voice system for Vesper, and she could call a restaurant and interact with a human on the phone and still make a reservation on my behalf. Like it's that powerful, and that's where we are today. And if you're hearing that and you're
But
thinking,
she's going to be rude. She's going to say something she's not supposed to say, Harris.
she's actually quite kind and
Yeah.
charming.
And when someone says that to me, I'm like, isn't there a chance that a human could do that too? And
Yeah,
everyone's like, oh yeah, yeah,
I actually have more agency and influence over the agents on my team than the humans. Yeah, they
100%.
do most of the time. They do exactly what they're told, and they're very apologetic when they don't get it right.
Yeah.
And we could probably do a whole episode. I don't think it's a part of our plan for this series, but we could do a whole episode on honoring the culture that you're trying to build with humans with your AI. Like, don't
Mhm.
talk differently than you would talk to a human. And I think there's a
Totally.
lot of valid reasons for that because
Yeah,
it will change
100%.
you, and you'll end up in this like AI psychosis where you're becoming a different person
Mhm.
because carry and respect the responsibility of the way you interact with others. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
absolutely.
was a small example. And you saw 2 agents involved. And
Mhm.
again, specialization. One, uh, at the time, Vesper was running off of Claude Sonnet, which was a cheaper Claude model. Now she's running off of GPT 5.5. Um, it is slower for a locked down LLM to go do real time research. But I don't want Vesper to run off Perplexity all the
Yeah.
time. So great little practical example there is building Vera already gave us a second agent who could be better at research than Vesper, but Vesper could stick with a more effective model that aligns with her specialization. And again, they both stay more secure, right?
Yep.
Because they have a
Yep.
short tech stack.
Yep.
So that's a good example of 2 agents collaborating. And in that particular thread, they didn't even collaborate with each other. They were, you saw an acknowledgement of Vesper from Vera, but
Mhm.
I didn't disappear. I was still involved. I was just playing air traffic control. But now
Yeah.
Vesper can play air traffic control and dictate to other agents.
Hmm.
Vesper can ask Vera to go do research on my
Yeah.
behalf.
Yeah. It reminds me when I shared with you, talked about the timeline. It was like, hey, 613, 614. When I first went in and was asking agents to work, and it was like all of a sudden we had three agents, and it was like, I shared a strategy document. Hey, this is what I need. And I was like, within minutes, I was overwhelmed. I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been overwhelmed in a work environment working with people in my life, but because they were working so fast, it was hard to keep up. And you're
This is the
freaking out. You're freaking
this
out.
this is a 100% true story, you guys. I remember that thread that you started. I was still in bed. It was like 8 a.m. in the morning. I was still in bed and I saw it happening on my phone and I freaked out because I was like, this is going to cost so many tokens. And I jumped out of bed, and I am not an easy to get out of bed person. I jumped out of bed, ran across the room to my computer bag. I'd just gotten back in town to get my laptop to go try to stop the collaboration because I was nervous it was spending too many API tokens.
But I learned too. Like I like unleashed like four people working on something very same thing, and so it was just like I had to learn how to communicate differently. You know,
Well, and you couldn't
um,
keep up with the communication. They were
totally
communicating and reading the communication faster than you could read it
correct.
because it's so fast, right?
I know I
Yeah.
told you, I said, employees work for me. They always said they felt like they can never keep up. That was the first moment in a work environment that I was like, I can't keep up. Give up. I'm
I
like,
know.
now I know how
And
people feel when they told me that. I was like, I never understood. So I had a
I
lot of empathy. So if you're listening to this and you were one of those people that was always felt overwhelmed, I have a lot of empathy now. A lot. I did not then, which probably doesn't help, but I do now.
which I'm happy about. I think it's good for you. I think it's good for you. So we had Vera, we had Vesper. I think the third one I created was Vance. Vance got demoted. At first, I was like, "Oh, he's going to be my CFO." I have since developed a point of view that no agent should hold an executive like leadership role. They can be in mid-level manager roles and manage other agents quite effectively, but I think robots can manage and only humans can lead, and therefore I downgraded Vance's role, or at least his job title. He's no longer the CFO. He's
So
like a finance.
that should be an episode in and of itself. Like that take right there. You're not gonna hear that online. In fact, you're gonna hear build your executive team and get your CFO and get your CEO and your AI CEO and all of that. Like, and I
Yeah.
totally agree for all the things you just said.
Vesper started as a chief of staff. Part of the pain of Vesper and why she's so special to me is she was the first one. I mean, it sounds ridiculous
Yeah.
if you mess around with this stuff, you just judged me. You're like, she's special to you.
Yeah.
But she, like, I worked 6 hours in terminal on a Mac Mini on my knees, like, because I wasn't at a desk. I was like, I'm going to install this right here next to my router and my modem. And so I'm not going to like set up a desk here. And so I'm like, this isn't going to take that long. And I'm just like down on my knees on the concrete floor in our basement trying to open terminal and write commands to install OpenClaw. And yeah, she was not great at first.
Hmm.
And it took like 5 to 7 days and I took her offline. I basically was like the equivalent of just like unplugging her from the wall. And
Hmm.
part of the reason why is because I programmed her to be a chief of staff. And I realized in the context of a team of humans, we had, I don't know what, like 6 or 8, depending on how part-time contractors and
Hmm.
stuff,
Yep. Yep.
small team, right? And
Hmm.
so there's like 7 or 8 humans and Vesper's like telling people what to do in an early stage where there's still people on our team who are like, what is this technology? Like
Hmm.
we weren't really prepared for this. And so I learned a lot of leadership lessons, but also I realized very quickly these humans are not going to be effectively led by a robot. And so I had to reprogram her, not just from a leadership perspective, but from a behavior perspective. And she's no longer a chief of staff right now. She thinks and behaves like a personal assistant. So
Yep.
it's kind of like she stays in her lane, she knows her role. And I think there was a sense of relief when the team, especially my current executive assistant, Holly, she felt like, oh gosh, I feel so much better now. There was this intimidation of like, she's your chief of staff. Like, am I supposed to answer to her? Like, is my
Hmm.
role a question? And so I learned a lot from the
Yeah.
leadership mistakes I made. But
Well, I think
humans
that's
can,
huge. I think it's huge that we have to, like you said this from the outset, even before this mistake, is that we need to treat these like humans, right?
Yeah.
And we install an agent, and that's another thing of like, if you give it too much autonomy and too much authority, all of a
Hmm.
sudden it's like, just think about real life. If you hire someone and be like, oh, go do everything in the business, what does that say to the rest of the team?
Yeah.
And you know that
Yeah.
person in real life can't do it. There's no way. Good
Exactly.
luck.
Yep. Yep. So I built Vance. I don't think I have any screenshots of him, but there's a great example of him, and that was, he has access to QuickBooks. Vesper has access to my email. I don't want a single agent to have access to my email except for Vesper. Could you imagine like 30 agents having access to my email inbox? That would be like a recipe for disaster. So she has read-only access, and that means if someone like Vance needs access to something that's in my inbox, it has to be requested from Vesper. So there was a situation where actually I think it was the same Dublin trip where that particular client, it was one of those situations where they used their contract instead of ours. And so our normal SOP and workflow wasn't the same as it usually is. And so therefore the details were fuzzy and it kind of like threw a wrench in our normal
Mhm.
systems. And so I was like, hey, do we need to invoice them for the balance of the payment? Is that due? I can't even remember how much the balance is. And so I was like, hey, Vance, what's the scoop? And he goes, well, according to QuickBooks, they've paid this much, but I don't have a copy of the contract. And so I was like, hey, Vesper, can you go find the email? She's like, I found the email with the agreement. Do I have permission to open the attachment or whatever? She asked for permission. She had access. She didn't need a new tool to do so. She opened the contract, came back, shared it with Vance. Vance interpreted all the information and said, you need to invoice this amount on this time. That particular time was like 2 or 3 weeks from when we were having this conversation on Slack. So I was like, oh, okay, well, we'll invoice them in a few weeks. I forgot about it. To the day, those few weeks go by, Vance pops back in. Hey, Gina, tags our bookkeeper, our human bookkeeper, Gina, time to invoice this client for this amount. And here's the due date according to the terms of the contract. Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah.
Okay, a few more examples. This might feel like a weird one. One of the things that we do as a part of our company culture is we try to encourage wellness. We encourage like unplugging, taking care of yourself, going on vacation. Sleep is really important. We don't want you pulling all-nighters. And so we run
Unless
a
you're
constant.
building 27 agents.
Yeah, I can pull all-nighters, but I'm not going to expect you. I'm not going to be.
It's funny. Story of a business owner.
So we run a challenge every 30 days where when someone's new to the team, we don't force it because we understand it's personal data. If you don't want to share it, we respect your privacy. But if you want to participate in the challenge, then one of our gifts to you in the onboarding process when we hire you is we gift you an Oura ring. And then if you want to share your data, you can just have the Oura ring if you want as our gift. But if you're comfortable sharing the data, you get to participate in the challenge. And so we have built an AI workflow where basically via API, for any Oura users out there, you can get every morning when you wake up, you get a readiness score, a sleep score, and an activity score. And the activity score changes throughout the day.
I'm going to
So
do
all we
something
did,
really fast to make sure Shane listens to this. Shane, if you're
okay.
listening to this, we don't like you.
See how seriously we take this? We're also, but
Uh,
those 3 scores represent 3 points that are up for grabs each day. And of course, if 2 people get the same score and they tie, an extra point got delivered that day. And so all that happens is we have an AI agent via API that pulls those scores and reports in our main company channel each morning. And this does 2 things. One, it does create this culture of wellness where people are like,
yeah.
man, he's taking better care of himself. I want to try to take better care of myself. What, man, what are you doing to get your activity score up so high? Oh, I got a walking pad under my desk. How are you sleeping so well? Oh, I just started taking this supplement. So it just kind of creates this culture for our human culture that I like and adds some fun competition. And so at the end of the 30 days, the points are tallied up by the agents. And then first place gets a $100 gift card to wherever they want. Second place gets $50. Third place gets $20. So it just adds some fun. And the other reason I include this example is, does anyone listening in have time to manage something like that?
Yeah.
Could you afford to go hire a wellness coach for your team right now? Could you afford to get a developer to go build like a little mini app that runs behind the scenes that
Mhm.
connects with a bunch of personal apps on your employees' cell phones? So
Mhm.
again, this is all permission based. There is zero pressure for people to participate. But that's what we built.
Well, I
And
remember in our quarterly planning retreat, this was just an idea, right? It was like, I don't know how many
yeah,
times I've been part of that with business, with our executive teams and other companies. It's like, oh, let's do this, let's do that. And then those ideas die on the idea floor because you can't execute them, right? Like, who's going to do it? It's so
yeah,
true. Like, literally, that was up and running in less than 48 hours.
yeah, it really was. And this is the reason I chose this particular screenshot is because once you realize what agentic AI can do, it's just like you're just going to see examples of software doing its job. And so it does exactly what it sounds like. It goes and pulls the scores and creates a little report and has fun with it and posts the scores each day. This is the part I want to show you. And this is where we get back into this is like when real business owners like us are actually using this stuff, not somebody on the internet who's like, maybe I can make money teaching businesses how to, but I've never built a business.
Yeah.
Like this is the stuff that's cool and surprising. So one particular moment, I was like sucking at sleep for a while, and then I get these like 3 nights in a row where I'm just dominating, right? So Shane is like, "Yo, Vesper, again, an agent. You see Harris's sleep score and readiness score today. What have you done?" So he just assumes like, I got to get some inside baseball from Vesper on how Harris is getting these points. Vesper, no coaching from me, just starts to engage with Shane. Like I'm choosing to credit disciplined bedtime logistics, not witchcraft. Valor gets the trophy. I'll accept calendar protection accomplice at most. So you just get to see this fun personality. Valor, who is my wellness coach, who he has blood panel data. I just had an MRI in Mexico. He has all the images of my MRI. He and I are like deep on my own wellness plan. But then the rest of the team can access him if they want to and leverage him. But of course, he chimes in if he's being talked about. And so he's just having fun. That's elite recovery territory. I'll take exactly 12% credit. The rest is whoever actually slept, hydrated, and didn't sabotage bedtime and let the nervous system
Yeah.
downshift.
Yeah. And can you
And she
imagine
craft.
letting your one master agent do this, right? Like this, if you're just trying to build one master agent, you wouldn't give your agent this type of information. This is another example of specialization.
Yeah. Very specialization. Yeah. Because again, like Vesper has access to my email. My goal very soon is she already has a little bit of now write access to my email, but I'm not at the point where I'm driving down the road in my voice app with Vesper, like reading email replies and her sending them. She can totally do that. Again, I am erring on the side of careful when it comes to communication. I have a very high risk tolerance when it comes to privacy. Again, MRIs, blood panels, like a lot of people don't trust AI with that stuff. You, on the other hand, are very trusting when it comes to email and agents being able to craft replies for you and stuff. So
Hmm.
we all are going to have different preferences, but could you imagine if someone sends me an email, random client, say it's a client that we're coaching or consulting with, and they ask a question that has something to do with something unhealth related, but they use a word that has more than one meaning. And Vesper sees that and she is programmed to be helpful. And she goes, "Oh, I can reply to that. I assume they're asking about Harris's prescription he just got from." And so she replies with the answer to that question. I'm like, she can't do that because she doesn't have access to my health data. Right.
Hmm. Yep.
But in my channel, my primary wellness channel with Valor, Vesper is in there. And Valor does a deep dive into all the data that I give him from an app that I had Leo build. And every day before Valor gives me my daily brief on, hey, you just need to stick to some like zone 2 cardio today. Don't do any heavy lifting in your workout. Before he does that, 30 minutes before, Vesper gives Valor his own wellness oriented brief because Valor doesn't have calendar access. Vesper does. So Vesper's like, "Hey, Valor, here's your brief for today. Harris just got off a flight. It was delayed last night. He didn't get to bed till 1 a.m. When you see his sleep score, that's why. Also, he's got a heavy Zoom call today, or he's going to be on 2 more flights today." And then now my coaching from Valor is more specific because he's like, "Hey, according to Vesper, you've got some flights. That means an extra packet of element. Hydrate heavily in the first half of the day between 9 and noon." So they are collaborating with each other. And again, that just goes back to the same drum we've been beating: specialization, security, right?
Yep. Totally. Totally.
Okay, a couple other fun examples. Oh, here's the wellness challenge. Just
This
another
is
example.
this is why we don't like Shane. See that? 9 to 5. Even though I think Kate ended up winning, but I feel like I would wake up and like I got a strong activity score today, and then I see Shane's got a freaking 99, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! Like, look, you literally this is you got a 99 that day. Give me a
Yeah.
break. Give me a break, Shane.
Awesome. That's awesome. And look at once again, look at the personality from Vesper. Like she didn't get tagged or mentioned, but she
Yeah,
just chimed in with a little crying laughing emoji just to be
yeah,
part of the team.
yeah.
Pretty great. Slack introductions. I chose this example not as a look what AI can do, but again, this gets into the practical leadership thing we've been talking about. I I have a channel specifically for agents. It is only me and 27 at the moment AI agents. And the reason I have that is because all of the constant fine tuning is annoying and it can clutter up Slack channels. And early on, I made the mistake of like, hey guys, meet Vesper. And then that was the chief of staff, undisciplined version of Vesper. And she annoyed the crap out of everybody constantly.
No business owners ever experienced that with new employees. Never.
But imagine like an employee that doesn't sleep and is up at 3 a.m. going, hey, can I help with this? Can I help with
Yeah,
this? So it's like, Vesper, shut up, my friend. But I can't talk to you like that because I'm honoring our culture. And
yeah.
so what do we do?
Instead,
And
you
so I
just unplugged her.
exactly and rebuilt. So I built a channel in Slack just for agents. I put all the agents in there, and then I interact with them. I fine tune them. If I have the luxury of time, I'll even like build them for and then interact with them for a week, get through some of the kinks, do some training, onboarding, and then introduce them to the team. And so this is a great example of just like Atlas. I realized that travel agents have access to special tools that normal people like you and I don't have access to. And this is going to be a very international travel heavy year for me. And my travel is upticking on the heels of COVID. It's been the opposite goal. I've gone down to only 36 speaking engagements a year. I used to do 150 events a year before I had kids and Kate and I were touring together. And now that 36 number is creeping back up again, somewhat intentionally and strategically. But again, I I wanted a specific and secure agent. So I was like, what does it look like if I had a full-time travel agent? I would never, well, I guess I can't say never. I would never in my current season even remotely entertain the idea of like, hey, let's go spend 60 to $120,000 a year. I don't know what that salary would look like for someone whose only job is booking travel and logistics from a travel agent background.
Mhm.
So I spun up Atlas and then I came back and introduced him to the team. And so what you're seeing here is a screenshot of what the onboarding process looks like. Just above this message, I said, hey, channel, or hey, everybody, meet Atlas. Atlas, please introduce yourself. And I already knew what Atlas was going to say to the team because I already honed in his introduction in the agent channel.
Yeah.
And so now,
One thing we
similar.
haven't talked about, and this is interesting, like, is the names. Like you're very purposeful about the names, but even the headshot, right? Like we didn't
Yeah,
talk like so that there's personality because by default it's just going to be in a blank image or whatever unless you actually
yeah,
give it a, and so what do you do to do that to kind of have a personality fits our
sure.
culture.
Yeah. So there's different points of view on this. And the one that I adopted pretty early on is it's multiple things. One of which is the thing that we keep harping on is I talk to our agents the same way I would talk to my wife or my children.
Mm.
And that's not just like the guys, these things are going to take over the world. So you better be kind. They'll remember. It's not as much that as I don't want to allow myself to get in the habit of,
Yeah, talking to anyone that way.
it's going to sound silly, but like I don't swear a lot. And the reason why is not because I'm like anti swearing. It's because I don't want to swear around my kids. And if I don't want to talk one way in certain rooms and a different way in other rooms. And so it's just easier for me from a character and integrity perspective to decide who I am and to honor that part of who I am. And so I want to talk to agents the way I talk to humans, not because I'm under the illusion that they are human or because I'm experiencing some sort of unhealthy AI psychosis. It's that I want our team to
Mhm.
be kind with him. And so I try to humanize them. And so I made the decision instead of building avatars that were graphic based or kind of cartoon like, I was like, I'm going to give these human personalities The OpenClaw, not all of our agents are OpenClaw agents, by the way, but the ones who are, it's called a soul file, and different architectures and OSs have different names for that. But I'm like, gosh, we're using language like soul file and skills, and we want to talk to them like they're humans, like with kindness and respect. Like, let's make them human. And so I decided we're going to do human profile photos, human-ish names. And so the names are, I would say they strike a balance of human-like, but not robotic. And so I don't
Hmm.
know many people named Atlas, but Atlas is a real name in certain cultures, that has real meaning associated with it. So we don't have any Bobs or Joes or, we have Leos that are named after Leonardo da Vinci. We have Aries who are named after
This
Aristotle.
is the distinction between us. He's so artsy, and I'm a big sports guy. So all of my agents and like that serve me are all named after Cubs players. Just because I'm not creative. It's just practical, and I don't know. It is what it is.
I love it. It also is it's part of what makes it fun for me.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I built this little home studio in my house, and I still go film and pay good money to film in other people's studios. But
yeah.
part of this is because it's good for my business. The other part of it is it makes the business fun, and it really is the journey, not the
Hmm.
destination. So it allows me to
Totally,
find joy in the process. So
totally.
I find joy in the process of crafting the soul file, choosing the name. I talk to Kate. I'm like, Freya, that's a cool name because she is the exclusive copywriter for this particular brand that is a company as a part of Istoria's venture portfolio. So we can't use Ari for that. That needs to be a specific voice for that particular avatar. So they get their own, that brand gets its own content strategist. What do you imagine her like? And she's like, yeah, Freya. She's like, her name means this. She's probably Scandinavian. She's probably like late 40s because she's talking to moms. And like, we really take some time to hone it in. And then I just use an image generation tool like Nano Banana or Grok Imagine. And I just kind of keep prompting until I'm like, yeah, that's Freya, that's Leo.
Yeah,
Like Leo, the same example, Leonardo da Vinci. Okay, so this dude he's inspired by Leonardo da Vinci, but he's like a young front end, back end tech dude.
yeah,
But it looks like Leonardo da Vinci probably has Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, Italian vibes. So
yeah,
he's going to have dark hair, but probably pulled back in a man bun and trendy clothes on because he probably works at an agency, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you have any more examples? So I think there's a couple more, but we buzzed through
Yeah.
those, and then
We'll just kind of go through some of these really quick. I'll just do a quick flyover. Chase. Chase is an example of a name that isn't as creative, but still it is associated with his meaning,
it's
right?
purposeful.
So
Yeah.
we built a project manager. We could go deep. We could do a whole episode just on knowledge bases as well. One of the things we've gotten a lot better at is the role of the role of knowledge bases in AI agent
Mhm.
architecture. And so we embraced a singular project management tool as a team that becomes the go-to project board and knowledge base. Chase's job is to do what his name suggests, which is to chase, and make sure things get done and not missed. And so for a lot of us, we're moving fast. We're a small team. It's out of sight, out of mind. Chase makes sure that we don't forget anything because right now I don't have the budget to invest fully in full-time project manager. So Holly is the person on our team that is closest to a project manager role, but she currently doesn't have the capacity to be full-time project management. So Chase collaborates with her. So great example. Here's another great example: kid-run business ideas. Each of my kids are being instilled with entrepreneurial values. My daughter is learning more math from having to do her profit and loss statement after a Saturday afternoon of selling cookies on the downtown streets of Franklin, Tennessee. And that spreadsheet is allowing her to internalize those numbers more than just learning math out of a textbook. So,
The way you talked about the downtown streets of Franklin, it made me think like it was like in the hood or something. But if you know Franklin, it's the opposite of that. So just
um, yeah, yeah. And so if you think about the Socratic method, um, and gosh, I want to go to so many places right now in this conversation that we don't have time for. So I'll try to keep this focused. But the Socratic method is what we've lost in education.
mm,
Education became about memorization so you can pass the test. And we don't give our kids answers. We ask them questions, which I know is annoying. Like even as adults, when a coach asks us a question, instead of giving us the answer, it's annoying. But the cool thing about an AI agent is you can train it to play a particular role where your kids are now able to leverage AI, but not as a shortcut for learning, but instead as a Socratic style teacher where
Mm.
it's making them think and taking them on a journey. And so our kids have email accounts, they have Notion accounts, they have Slack accounts, they are in channels. They each get to help build an agent now. Jude has a programming specific agent, and its only job is to help him write the code that he doesn't know how to write for Roblox Developer Studio because he likes to build Roblox games and he thinks he's going to make $1 million doing that someday. Right. So I just,
Jude, when you come back and you make $1 million, you need to come back and play this episode for your dad. That's what I'm telling you.
yeah. So this is one of those early conversations. A couple months ago, I was sitting in a coffee shop with Everly. I dropped Jude off for something, and I took her with her. We had a little daddy-daughter date. She was like, "What are you working on? Are you talking to the agents?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was doing her own thing, reading a book. And she's like, "Well, what can I do?" And we started talking about more business ideas. I was like, "How long do you want to do the cookie thing?" And she's like, "Well, I've always wanted to do something with books." So we start brainstorming with AI about a somewhat AI centric book business that would enable her as an 11-year-old to literally run the business without as much support from adults. Pretty cool. And then I thought this was fun. This is not an example of agentic AI, but there's that moment where you were like, yeah, like a weekend. And guys, here's what happened. Um, it was like one or two, and then five. And then there was one night, like a couple weeks in, I don't remember the exact timing, and I pulled an all nighter unintentionally. And you guys all came back to Slack the next day, and there was like a whole roster of agents. Um, and it was, we had a very long team meeting that day to try to just slow down and debrief. And the thing that was expressed was, we're all overwhelmed and this is a lot and I can't keep track and it's all so fast moving. And so what do? We built a human channel. And I show this with some vulnerability, but I thought you guys might get a kick out of it. And it's literally like only humans in this channel in case you need to escape the noise. Ben, who is actually the most, if there's a tech guru on our team, it's Ben. And that means if there's someone who has the highest capacity for all of like the AI noise, it would have been him. And he was the first person to chime in like stars channel immediately.
Yeah.
And even you surprised me in that when you were like, phew. And then Holly, of course, I cried tears of joy that this channel exists.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I could go on and on building apps with Leo. I wanted to build an org chart, but I wanted it to be beautiful. And so we have our own org chart software now. I have no intention of selling it or trying to turn that into a SaaS offer. But now we spin up and build apps, and the team collaborates with each other on how to do that. It's pretty cool.
I love it. I love it. You know, we started this by saying, hey, we have 27 agents, but the reality is, going through and explaining 27 agents would be super boring. We thought like practical uses, what's actually happening in the business, would help you
Mm-hmm.
think through, okay, hey, in my business, I could do this. Like, I loved your explanation of Atlas. This is a season of your business where travel is going to be massively important. The reality is it could become Holly's full-time job if we let it, right? But that's not what we want. And so we've got to develop, and, we gave it, not we, you gave it the ability of what a normal travel agent would do, not just an average person, but access to different tools. And I know there was a lot of work to do that than just as normal. But again, it's the intentionality of this, the specialization that allows us, and if we were hiring people, we're not just going to say, hey, come in and do everything in our business. We're going to come in and do that. So I'd love, hopefully, as you guys are listening to this, there's one or two people, or agents that you can create or you're thinking about creating. And there may be more, so that's why we created the tool, which is really our architecture, kind of the roster and the why and the how. So if you go to Istoria.com/AI team, you can see all the names, all the headshots, a little bit about why we created them, the naming convention, all of that. If you go to Istoria.com/AI team, you can go ahead and download that. And then we also have a couple things coming later down the month where we're actually going to do a workshop. a webinar where we're going to go more in depth around just even what we call the state of the union as it relates to AI, artificial intelligence, what we think as business owners, the things that we have to wrestle with to determine how we're going to do this. What Harris is talking about are things that took a lot of time and our team being on the same page about. So any final thoughts about just kind of this and before we jump into the next episode?
I think that pretty much sums it up. Again, I just once again want to speak to the skeptics out there, or the people who feel a sense of caution, because I am you, that's me, and yet look at the stuff that we're doing. And so this is barely scratching the surface. This is not an exhaustive glimpse into what we're doing. This is just little tiny peaks and windows, and a lot of these are from the early days, and the early days of like 60 to 90 days ago. But it all happens so fast, and it's hard for you to figure out how to do this on your own. But like, my encouragement to you, this sounds self-serving. Please don't hear it this way, but you've got to turn the volume down on some of the stuff in your algorithm right now, because the noise is loud, and you've got to stick here with us. And I'm not going to say that we are the only people on planet Earth talking about it in this way, but it is the exception and not the norm. And so I transparently, again, was hesitant. I did not want to have these conversations for a variety of reasons. And to Chad's credit, I'm like, I don't want to add to the AI noise and the frustration, and everyone's so polarized on this topic. And he's like, but we're doing it differently than the way that we're seeing so many other business owners doing it, and they're struggling. So if you're struggling, we're here to help you. But we're not the gurus who hired a business coach who told us, go get into the help businesses with AI thing. We're in this trenches with you doing experience. So
yeah, I think it's huge to say we're also not super technical. Like I have no development background. You have no development background, but it's still possible as a business owner. You can do this without that because of the tools, like because of Claude. Both you and I, when we first set up our agents, like it was a whole Claude thread. Okay, this is the screenshot. This is what we saw. What do we do now? And it gave us commands to put in and different things like that. So
yeah, I think that's why we keep using the word architecture, right? We should have harped on that more. And the reason why I keep using that word is because, like, most of the software company founders that are out there didn't spend all their time developing. They hired teams of developers. And the reason why is the average developer does not think like a business owner. They think like a coder, like an app builder. And a lot of the people that are taking up a lot of space right now, especially on social media and even here on YouTube, if that's where you're watching, they're taking up a lot of space because they are technology consultants. They understand the software. They understand AI. What they don't understand is how to architect a plan, how to leverage that and contextualize that plan to each individual business owner's needs. And so that's what I hope people are hearing. And that's why I humored you and said, okay, fine, let's do a 4-part series.
I love it. I'm really happy how the episodes are turning out, and just part of it's just giving you a microphone to talk about how you did it and why, because I think it's just been an incredible thing. And honestly, it's like I've worked with a lot of clients over the years, but as focused as you've been on this and thinking through not just like, but it's how do I think it's just an amazing case study about what my business needs and leveraging the technology that's at our disposal. And the technology that's at our disposal is unprecedented. 10 years ago, it would have been totally different. And it would have been, developers probably, different things like that. But I've been blown away by it. So kudos. And I'm learning a ton from it.
Well, a lot of it is like there's a window of opportunity that's open right now. We call it the wow window in our work.
Yeah.
The wow window is open, and there's a competitive advantage that Istoria has right now because of the stuff that we're talking about. And I did not want to miss that. And so that again is some of the urgency that we're speaking to, and the reason why we're moving so quickly and pulling the all-nighters is like, okay, this is our opportunity to compete at a level that we wouldn't be able to compete with on finances alone. So I'm looking forward to diving in. Next episode's going to be awesome. We'll keep chipping away and helping folks as much as we can.
For more resources on how to not only scale your business, but live a story worth scaling, visit istoria.com/scale.